US President Joe Biden has called Donald Trump supporters garbage during a Kamala Harris campaign event. Joining us live now is political analyst and commentator Aidan Smith with some reaction. Aidan, thank you for your time. I see Joe Biden is trying to clarify these comments. He's saying he was referring to the comedian who made that comment about Puerto Ricans recently at a Trump rally. But has the damage been done, do you think?
Hi, yes, it's funny. It's kind of after a pretty busy evening, not least of which with the election just 7 days away. When I was just trying to parse kind of the news of this, I actually do think that, Biden talking about his choice of words, especially when we're thinking of leader of the free world, how he needs to be a lot more precise with stuff. My instant read was that I actually do think he was telling the truth and that he was referring to that person specifically. I think the next sentence he was using the phrase his in like a singular sense to refer to that guy whose comments I think got, the comedian got denounced by a few Republicans, Rick Scott of Florida, Congresswoman, also from Florida. But yeah, obviously not the best headline to have 7 days out from the race for Harris.
Particularly off the back of those now very famous Hillary Clinton comments. We all remember she called Republican supporters a basket of deplorables back in the 2016 presidential election campaign speech. And of course, this will bring up memories of that.
Totally, yeah. And it's funny because, certain phrases, especially over the last 8 years, have become so ubiquitous. And I think, obviously, the Clinton basket of deplorables comment, something that's been marked into history. And any kind of appearance of that and kind of any comment that, and I do actually think Biden was just referring to the Tony person, just judging from the way that he awkwardly phrased what he said. But any kind of appearance of giving ammunition to the other 50% of the country who supports the other party, it's just not the kind of headline you want to have when this election is looking like such a coin flip. I think that the Harris campaign probably feels at least some stress, especially since, the last 2 days of press coverage have probably been pretty good for them. Just after the Madison Square Garden rally by Trump garnered some negative press. So, that's kind of my instant reaction. I'm sure Harris and her camp is pretty frustrated by this.
Yeah, it's the last thing she needs. As you mentioned, things are just looking so tight at the moment. We seem to see a flurry of polls coming through every day at the moment. Have any raised your interest, piqued your interest? What's your read on where things are at in some of those key states?
For sure. I think the thing we're saying, it's obviously difficult because you've seen, obviously, you get a barrage of new polls daily where it's 47% Harris, 46% Trump, to the point where it's these things kind of blur together. I think probably more likely than not, Harris looks like she'll probably win the popular vote. But in terms of what actually concretely matters, the Electoral College, that just remains to be seen. I think there's some talk on her looking weaker in Arizona compared to Biden 4 years ago. Well, some people are pretty encouraged by, I think, her, what she's doing in Wisconsin, which was a huge, huge battleground state, not just 4 years ago, but in every election, with Arizona kind of being a more recent former red state, now competitive state. So I think in terms of Harris actually seems like she's doing fairly well polling wise in the old Rust Belt. In terms of the emerging Sun Belt, places like Georgia and Arizona that have been Republican over the last half century and suddenly have become competitive the last 10 years, and Biden won both by a hair last time. I think some people are more pessimistic. I think what really is likely to come down to is Pennsylvania, and right now the polling is just neck and neck, so we'll just kind of have to see on Tuesday.
Aidan Smith, I appreciate your analysis, joining us live there from Washington, D.C. very late in the evening. Thank you for staying up for us.